This is a tutorial on how to create an Razza inspired background. So if we have a look at an Razza canvas, we can see there's lots and lots of different textures that he creates with different media. We're not looking so much at the image in the foreground at the moment. We are just creating our background for our work. So what we're going to need is your paper. And first of all, you're going to need to create some textures in the background. So what we would do is we would ask you to use a little bit of brown tape and rip that up and stick that into different sections. So you can see here, you can see more of a textured papers that he has then painted on top of. So we'd use this. The shinier side is like an envelope, so it kind of has a little bit of glue on it. So if you apply a bit of a sponge on top and get those ripped edges. You can apply a little bit of that on, and then I'm going to add a little bit of this textured paper as well with the cuts in it, because you can add a bit more of different type of texture feature on top. So applying plenty of glue. Add that on there, and then you can pull some of the sections as well, or crease some of the sections, because you don't want it to look too flat and perfect. You want to get those 3D texture effects. Put a tiny bit more of it on top on the other side. So I glued it flat like that off for this one. So I'm going to put it like that side up for the next one. Like this. Okay, so I think that's enough. I'm not going to go, you don't want to overwhelm your page with lots of different backgrounds to paint over, to work over the top. That's enough of different types of textures along with the paper. So then what I want to do is I want to create some negative space. You see here with Razza, the white area really stands out first, and we'd say that that's because there's not too much going on there, that there's this bright white light, so that's creating some negative space. So with a white oil pastel, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in a similar area. I'm just going to press quite hard a flash, this flash shape, using my white oil pastel. Now what that's going to do is that's going to resist any of the watercolour paint that I'm going to apply on top. So with a paintbrush, I'm going to get a nice, and you see that Razza here has used nice warm colours, so I'm going to go ahead and do it with the yellow and a little bit of orange. And I'm going to apply it over the top of my paper here. But what you will see is that where I've put the white oil pastel, the paint, the watercolour paint, won't sink into the paper because it resists it, because it acts as like a barrier onto the paper. If I use a little bit of red so that you can see, it gives it that defined line. Now the acrylic paints that you have would go over this white oil pastel. So if you want to do some resistant marks with white, then only do it with the watercolour paints. If you try and go over it, it just won't sink in and it will bubble on top like that. Okay, so we've got that effect. Then, I would probably add a little bit more, get maybe some blues to apply over to the top of my other papers, just to kind of give it a little bit more shading. Then I would, with an oil pastel, with my coloured oil pastels now, so as you can see here, there's some really strong, vibrant colours towards the edges. I would get my reds and my darker tone, and I would add a bit more vibrant colours to my canvas or to my paper. Now I'm going to add a little bit of tone. So I'm going to use my red for my dark and a yellow for my light, and then an orange for my mid-tones, and really work into this. And keep going, keep working over the top of it. Then with this paint, so this is your acrylic paint, I'm not going to apply this with a brush, I'm going to apply this with a spatula or with a glue stick. So using a little bit, using a little bit of the yellow and a little bit of red, I'm going to scoop it on my spatula and a little bit of the blue, like this. I'm going to spread it over. And what this does is it's going to give it a nice, almost marbled effect. Gives it some really nice textures. And it looks completely different to if you used a paintbrush to apply this paint. Scraping it on, and it kind of gives this very sharp edged, which you'll see lots in Razza's canvas work. Now he uses a palette knife to apply his, and I'm doing it with a glue stick, but it has the same kind of effect. I'm going to get some more over my serrated background edges. I'm going to go over the watercolour as well, just to kind of lighten it up a bit and to blend it all in so it doesn't look like separate sections. What you don't want is the canvas to look like parts that don't work with one another. You want it to blend in, but you don't want it to blend in a way that then makes the paint appear brown or mucky. And then what I'm going to do is, if we just have a quick look at Razza's, you can see that he has some stamped areas or some really uniformed or uniformed really, or repeated patterns. So what I'm going to do to get that effect is I'm going to use my own makeshift stamps. So the end of a paintbrush, I'm going to do it with the dark blue so it really stands out. I'm going to choose an area that's a little bit lighter, and I'm just going to stamp some shapes repeatedly. To get that same effect that Razza has in his work. I'm not going to go over the top, I'm not going to do it lots, just a little bit, and then I'm also going to do it with a square version as well. And dip that into a white and yellow and try and get some green. Mix it up a bit. Go along here. There we go. And I'd leave it at that. So once this is dry, then you can draw your different cogs over the top, and you've got yourself a lovely Razza inspired background.